Opendoor investors already had it pretty good with Eric Jackson in their corner, but this past week, the Bulls got an early Christmas gift. I'm talking Anthony Pompliano taking a position in the company. I'll be covering that news, including Eric Jackson's ultimatum for the Opendoor board. We will break down everything you need to know regarding Opendoor, including a bullish technical indicator that no one's paying attention to. We'll also break down some of the latest macro news, including the US pausing tariffs once again on China for 90 days. We'll cover the latest AMD and Nvidia news, and Elon Musk potentially suing Apple. All that and much more on this week's midweek check-in. As always, if you get value from these videos, make sure to share with a buddy, share with your boss if you like stocks, and make sure to like, subscribe, and follow wherever you listen to podcasts. And now, folks, let's roll. All right, so we got a lot to get into with Opendoor, of course, and some other macro news. We're going to lead off, though, with one of the hottest stories in the market, which is Opendoor. I'm Brandon. Welcome back to Stoncast, the market show for the average Joe. Whether you're a diamond-handed degenerate or a more conservative swing trader or investor, we've got you covered. All right, so Opendoor is up just about 30% over the past week. Pretty impressive considering the post-earnings sell-off that we saw. And one of the main things that has been driving some of the buying that we've been seeing lately is the fact that Anthony Pompliano came out publicly on Tuesday stating that he was taking a position in the company. So let's take a look at his tweet that he put out. This from Anthony Pompliano: I have personally purchased shares in Open today. I believe retail investors are a powerful force in financial markets. They can help a company grow, generate new ideas, and bring valuable attention to a narrative. The combination of capital, attention, and insights from retail should improve a business over the long run. I look forward to participating in the conversation about how Opendoor can accelerate their business and transform the residential real estate market. So this is massive news. For those of you who don't know, Anthony Pompliano is a well-known bull, a well-known friend of the retail community. He has various ventures. He's big on Bitcoin and really just crypto in general. But he has a massive following, right? He has over 1 million followers on X. He's got a newsletter that probably has about the same amount of people paying attention to that. And so the fact that he is getting into Opendoor publicly just means that we're going to have more eyes on the stock now. So you already had Eric Jackson out there, who's really been the champion for the retail community as it relates to Opendoor. But now you add to that Anthony Pompliano. So now you got even more eyes on it. This is really just massive news, in my opinion. And here's the thing, too, is that one of Eric Jackson's gripes about Carrie Wheeler, the CEO for Opendoor, is the fact that she hasn't really done a lot of interviews or really anything since earnings. I think Eric Jackson has done more with Bloomberg and Yahoo Finance in the past 4 weeks than Carrie Wheeler has done in 4 years. And so Anthony Pompliano, obviously a well-known individual in the market, has a show and basically put out a tweet saying that he wanted to, interview Carrie Wheeler. And so this was very interesting. This was another tweet from him. Things are about to get interesting. Interview coming. This is what he originally sent out. I want to extend a public invitation for Open CEO Carrie Wheeler to join me for a recorded conversation about Opendoor. It would be interesting to hear her talk through the current state of the business, along with plans on how to continue growing in the coming months. And then Carrie Wheeler responded with, I'm in, DM me, and we can work out a time. So that is very, very interesting. It looks like we are going to be getting an interview with Carrie Wheeler from Anthony Pompliano, and that is sure to get a ton of attention, folks. And here's the thing. I'll give Carrie Wheeler credit here because she has taken a lot of heat over the past couple of weeks regarding the fact that she really hasn't done a lot as far as interviews and things like that. So the fact that she was prompt to respond to Anthony and essentially say, I'm in, I think is pretty big news. So we will see when they are actually going to do this. I don't think there's been a date or time announced yet. But in either case, this is big news for the Bulls. The fact that you have such a prominent voice for the retail community, and Anthony Pompliano joining Eric Jackson and saying, hey, I believe in this company, and now we're going to get the CEO interviewed as well and maybe get a chance to hear more about some of those initiatives that the company is trying to do, especially in the way of AI. I mean, Opendoor is not just the name of the company. It's Opendoor Technologies, right? Their whole business philosophy, right, is taking a legacy industry such as real estate and really transforming it with technology, the iBuyer model, and different, AI features. So I'm very much looking forward to this. And this was, really big news this past week. So, and if we take a look at, just how the chart reacted, right? If we take a look at Opendoor and see how Tuesday looked when we initially got this announcement from Anthony Pompliano, you can see here we had massive volume come in on Tuesday. We had a giant spike up from about 230 all the way up to 267. So this is not just some, one-off tweet that doesn't have impact. You can easily tell here there are a lot of eyes paying attention to Anthony. And when he said that he was buying open, you can believe that there were a lot of people following suit. So very interesting. We'll see, where that story goes over the coming weeks. Again, I'll be paying attention to when that interview with Carrie Wheeler actually happens. So, very interesting stuff. All right, let's move on now to some news with Eric Jackson, folks. So obviously Eric Jackson, now with Anthony Pompliano involved, is essentially the OG for the Opendoor Bulls. And he put out this tweet earlier this past week, essentially giving the board an ultimatum. So this is very juicy stuff here. And really, there's just been no lack of news on Opendoor over the past week. The story just continues to build just when you think it's dying, right? So this from Eric Jackson. This confirms it. In 2.5 years as CEO, Carrie Wheeler has done one media appearance, not 4 or 5 per quarter like a real platform CEO on CNBC, Bloomberg, Fox Biz, podcast, just one. While Open melted to 51 cents on June 25th, the board sat asleep at the switch after Tuesday's earnings. Zero Media took 3 days to tweet that she's, quote, excited about retail support that took her stock from 51 cents to $2 and let her cancel her 50-to-1 reverse split lifeline. This is corporate governance malpractice, like when Yahoo's Scott Thompson got caught lying about a CS degree at Stonehill College. Does Lynn Blatfinick know? Do Access Industries and O1A Venture LP know? Now, I know what some of you are thinking, who is this Lynn Blatfinick guy? So I looked it up because I didn't know either. Lynn Blatfinick is a billionaire mogul philanthropist. He basically sneezes money. In all seriousness, though, Lynn Blatfinick started Access Industries, which is basically a private equity firm, and it spans across a bunch of different, industries. But basically, through their venture capital arm, which is Access Technology Ventures, they have been involved with Opendoor since 2015. I'm talking the early days, right? Before they IPO'd, this company was involved with, basically helping get some of those private funding rounds going. And in 2021, this company had a substantial stake in Opendoor to the tune of $1 billion. So basically, when you have Eric Jackson saying, does Lynn Blatfinick know? He's essentially saying Lynn Blatfinick has a substantial stake in Opendoor and therefore has a vested interest in the direction of management, in the direction of the company and where it's headed. So very interesting that he calls out Lynn Blatfinick in this tweet. Let's continue. The only fix, follow at Rabo's suggestion, put me on the open board within 10 days as the retail voice plus conscience of the OG founders and early team who still believe this can 100x. I'll be your voice in the room, working with directors, harnessing the energy of our global open community. But if by August 20th the board stonewalls, I'll consider selling every share and moving to my next 100x idea. Each of you will decide for yourselves too. Aside from Palantir, when have we ever seen this much retail love this close to the bottom? We need to harness it and stop wasting it. The board's choice, as he puts it, embrace it, put me on, or keep the happy talk and watch retail walk. Very, very juicy tweet from Eric Jackson, and he's essentially turning up the heat right now on the board. And look, I can't disagree with him. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant move. I think I agree with him when it comes to Carrie Wheeler in basically the lack of just media attention and taking advantage of the retail interest that her company is currently having. He's basically telling them, look, either you put me on the board within 10 days or I'm going to walk. And if he walks, you can believe that there's going to be a lot of the retail community that will also walk, right? Because there's a lot of people involved in this company due to Eric Jackson. It could definitely have a negative impact on the company if he decides to back off of this, because really he's been doing, let's be frank, he's been doing a lot more than Carrie Wheeler lately for just hyping up the company and getting eyes on it. So this is a juicy tweet, folks. I don't know if the board is going to call his bluff, but we will, definitely be paying attention to it in the coming weeks to see if, look, if they put Eric Jackson on there, that could be very interesting. And I think that Carrie Wheeler is taking a good initial step post that ultimatum tweet from Eric Jackson by taking advantage of the fact that Anthony Pompliano wants to interview her. So again, we'll be paying attention to that in the coming weeks and see when exactly that will be happening. Now let's move into the chart for Opendoor just to kind of see where we've been. Like I said, over the past week, we're up over 30%. And as I've been saying from the get-go, in order for the bull thesis to remain, at least in my humble opinion, we have to remain above $2. And we have done that. We did dip below $2 for a couple days, but we have reclaimed it. If you take a look at Monday here, we had this beautiful, beautiful candle where, we had really good volume. And if we actually zoom in here on a 30-minute chart, take a look at this Monday action here, price action, right? You have lower lows, you got higher highs, right? This is just a gradual climb that we had throughout the day. This is beautiful price action. And the fact that volume sustained throughout the day is also incredible. We got back above that 61.8% Fibonacci retracement level of 221, which, as I was saying on the last episode, $2 was the initial psychological level to get above. And then beyond that, 221 is very important. We got above that. So that's great. And then we held it, as you can tell here, in after hours on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we actually held it. And this just goes to show you how important Fibonacci levels are, how well they can work. And so we see very clearly here that 61.8% level acted as support. What was resistance becomes support. And then, of course, we had the Anthony Pompliano news that came out midday and, took it higher. Now, if we take a look at Wednesday, Wednesday was kind of a quiet day. We basically closed flat. And as you can see here, the volume was a little bit lower, which is actually a good sign. The fact that you see less volume on a selling day or just kind of a flat day can either mark indecision or selling pressure is drying up. There's not a lot of conviction on the bear side, right? That's the best way that I could put that there. And if we zoom out and we just take a look at a daily chart, folks, this is what I'm really, really excited for. If we take a look at this daily chart here, you have the 50-day moving average currently sitting at $1.31. It is the white line here on my chart. And then the 200-day moving average is currently sitting at $1.35. That's the yellow line. And when you get the 50-day crossing the 200-day, that is a golden cross. There is really not a more bullish technical indicator when it comes to technical analysis that you can look for than a 50 crossing 200. It's called a golden cross. And you can definitely believe that there are a ton of technical traders that are just, scanning for these kind of setups. This is more of a midterm, long-term, very bullish indicator. And so the fact that that is forming right now in Opendoor, as you can see, the 50-day has been creeping up for quite a while now, really since we had that massive run-up a few weeks back. And we're in a position now where it could easily happen tomorrow, maybe the next day, depending upon what price action looks like. And you can already tell what, some moving average crossovers can lead to. This is the 20-day crossing the 50-day. This happened back on July 16th. And you can see we had that massive run up. Now, does that mean that if we get a golden cross, it automatically means that we're going to get some insane bullish action to the upside? No. But again, it is one of the most bullish indicators that you can get. And so therefore, it's something worth paying attention to. Also, the RSI right now is currently sitting at 59 on Opendoor, which is great. We had, a pretty substantial run up. We saw the RSI get a little overheated, and now we are, sitting really at a reasonable spot, I would say, sitting at 59 on the RSI. And, today kind of helps, keep that RSI in check. We don't want to see it get too crazy and go back above, 70 or 80 too fast, because that just is almost assuredly going to mean that we will get a sell-off, kind of like a reset. So that's where we're sitting on the chart right now. Really what I'm looking for on Thursday and Friday, I want to see if we can break 250 and then 274. Those are my initial levels that I'm paying attention to on Opendoor. 274 is the 50% Fibonacci level and more of a psychological level. And then beyond that, you got $3 and then 327 is the 38.2% retracement level. If we can somehow this week find a way to get close to $3, I would be very, very happy. But we also know this stock is volatile, can move very, very quickly, 20-30% intraday. So who knows what the rest of the week could hold. But as far as all the major moving averages right now, we are above all of them. You got the 5, the 10-day kind of coiled up right now on the daily chart. And so from a technical analysis standpoint, this looks pretty good. Add to that the fact that you have some notable investors now in the bull camp with Anthony Pompliano joining the ranks of Eric Jackson, and it's just a recipe for a potential short squeeze. Speaking of short squeeze, the interest on this is still sky high. We're talking anywhere from 20 to 25%. I saw Ortex showing intraday some numbers around 30% short interest. So there is still a ton of short interest on this stock, which again is going to help if we start having shorts cover. That's just more buying pressure on the stock, in addition to any bulls out there that are just naturally buying, right? So that's where we stand on the chart right now. I'm looking to see 221 hold the support, which again is at 61.8% retracement level. And I want to see if we can get above 250 and then 274, maybe Thursday. I think that would be fantastic if we could do that, but we'll have to see what happens. All right, let's move on to the options chain. This was another thing that was very notable on Wednesday. We had an insane put to call ratio on Opendoor. A lot of bullish bets on this company right now. If we take a look here, the put to call ratio, you can see right over here, was 0.21. We're talking 4 times as many calls being bought than puts. That is wild. We had over 253,000 calls and only 53,000 puts. So people were very, very bullish on Opendoor on Wednesday, and really we saw the same thing on Tuesday as well. The current IV percentile is currently sitting at 38%, which is excellent, and the implied volatility is 169% right now on Opendoor. So that's where we sit on the options chain. Keep in mind that August 15th is the monthly expiration date, and so we're going to see probably some interesting moves in either direction over the next couple days as we get closer to that expiration date. All right, so that's what we got right now on Opendoor. And, listen, right now, I think we're sitting in a position that is very bullish. I think the fact that you got Anthony Pompliano coming in is great. You got Eric Jackson putting heat on the board. Really excited to see what the rest of the week holds for Opendoor. Really more so in the midterm to long term, given the fact that you got that golden cross forming on the daily chart. I'm very excited for that. So let me know what you think about the chart. Drop a comment and let me know what your position is on Opendoor right now. If you think that Anthony Pompliano is bullish or bearish coming into the stock, definitely let us know here on Stockcast. All right, let's move on now to some macro news. So first of all, let's take a look at really just the overall markets and see how things looked on Wednesday. Let's kick it off, first of all, with the S&P 500. And if you've been following the show for a while, you know that I've had some Fibonacci extension levels lined out for the S&P 500, and we tapped another one on Thursday, which is the 61.8% retracement level of 64.67. I've been calling that out for a while now, and again, you can just see how well Fibonacci levels in general can work. We tapped it today. We hit a new all-time high. Insane. If you're bullish on the market right now, you're sitting pretty, and really just everything in the market is in this risk-on environment space right now. So S&P 500 looking good. Let's take a quick check-in on the tech-heavy NASDAQ via the Qs. Hit an all-time high on Wednesday as well. Quick check-in on IWM, small caps. And small caps, folks, have been looking just fantastic over the past couple of days. Tuesday and Wednesday, insane bullish days. I think at one point I saw IWM up something like 2.7% on Tuesday. So small caps are looking good. And, that's obviously helping Opendoor as well. Quick check-in on the VIX. The VIX right now is currently sitting at 14.49. So continues to come off, staying below 20. That's what you want to see if you're a bull. And let's do a quick check-in on Bitcoin. So at time of recording, Bitcoin is a ripping. It's up to 122,899 right now, over 2% on the day. And, looks like it wants to hit a new all-time high, which, as I've been calling out on the show, is that 123,000 level roughly. So right now, crypto in general looks fantastic. This is TradingView. In case you're curious about it, it's an awesome platform for charting. They have a lot of good tools on here. If you're interested in checking out TradingView, check the link in the description, get $15 off. All right, so let's move on to some macro news with China, folks. So this, according to Barron's, China trade deal deadline extended to early November. President Donald Trump has extended the trade truce with China through November 9th. That means the tariff rate on imports from China will remain at 30% rather than boomerang up to a higher level as it would have if no deal had been struck by Tuesday. He said, quote, "I have just signed an executive order that will extend the tariff suspension on China for another 90 days, Trump said in a social media post. All other elements of the agreement will remain the same. The White House released the text of the executive order Trump signed late on Monday. So why the U.S.-China tariff deadline extension is coming down to the wire? So President Donald Trump is, basically in a position right now where he wants to get a deal done with China. I mean, we're talking two of the largest economies in the world. They definitely want to get a deal done. And at this rate, it looks like it's going to take literally half a year for that to happen. The fact that we got another extension rather than tariff prices going up on China, I think is a good thing. I think it's bullish for the market. We remember what happened when we got the initial pause on reciprocal tariffs, that historic day where the market in general just skyrocketed. So the fact that we are pausing tariffs on China, I believe, is a good thing. It gives them more time to essentially come to terms and see what's going to happen. And really, when you talk about all of the different businesses impacted by China that have things made in China, this is, really good news for everybody because of the fact that those costs that, are going to come through tariffs are inevitably going to get passed down to businesses, which will inevitably pass those down to the consumer. So really, this is just good news that we're postponing this. So we'll see what happens with Basent and, any of those trade negotiations that will be coming up over the following weeks. Hopefully we get a deal done sooner than later. So we'll be keeping tabs on this, but this was the big tariff news of the past week. Again, a 90-day pause for China being put in place until November 9th. All right, this from the Wall Street Journal. So with billions at risk, NVIDIA CEO buys his way out of the trade battle. So I don't know how many of you were paying attention, but, we've been talking on the show for a while now about NVIDIA and some of the revenue that they initially lost when President Trump and his administration told them they could not sell some of their chips to China. And basically, Jensen Huang, the CEO for NVIDIA, basically met with President Trump and basically got a deal done, right? So as this article lays out here, again from the Wall Street Journal, Jensen Huang, chief executive of California-based chip designer NVIDIA, worked for months behind the scenes in Washington and Beijing to protect tens of billions of dollars in future sales from the heated U.S.-China trade rivalry. Huang told President Trump that restrictions on U.S. chip sales to China would backfire by pushing Chinese technology champions to achieve self-reliance. He advised the president to keep China hooked on American tech. As a sweetener, Huang said the company would invest as much as $500 billion in the U.S. Huang's argument, along with the $500 billion offer from the world's most valuable company, appeared to seal the deal. The Trump administration decided last month to allow China to buy NVIDIA's H20 artificial intelligence chip, a surprising reversal that came shortly after Huang met with Trump. NVIDIA had developed the H20 to comply with past export restrictions as a less powerful chip specially designed for China. The news sent NVIDIA stock up 4%, pushing its market capitalization further above the record $4 trillion mark. Beijing reciprocated by allowing a $35 billion deal involving U.S. chip software makers that it had held up for about a year. In a previously unreported development, Chinese officials also froze an inquiry into an already completed NVIDIA deal. With both moves, China's leaders hoped Huang would keep lobbying Washington for loosened export controls. There was one last hitch, however. At the meeting with Huang in the White House last week, Trump made one more demand that NVIDIA give the federal government 20% of its chip sales to China in exchange for issuing the export licenses. He said, quote, "If I'm going to do that, I want you to pay us something," Trump said, recounting the exchange at a news conference Monday. So basically, President Trump told him, look, if we're going to do that, we need some money from you. And Huang, facing a choice of paying for long-term access to a market vital to his company or walking away, countered with 15%. And so the interesting thing now is that you have NVIDIA and AMD that will be giving a cut of their revenue to the U.S. government. And this is a very unique situation. This isn't something that you see very often, if ever. And so right now there's a lot of people debating, hey, is this actually legal? Can he actually do this or not? And so I'm sure there's going to be some follow-up questions regarding this setup right now. But it looks like President Trump just did what he always does, which is make a deal. The man has made a career out of making deals, and he did that with the most powerful company in the world, market capitalization-wise, right now, which is NVIDIA. He saw that NVIDIA had a pain point. He saw that NVIDIA needed to sell chips to China, and he essentially took advantage of the situation for better or for worse. So I'll be very curious to see if there are any legal actions taken regarding this. But when I initially saw this headline, I was pretty shocked. Never seen anything like that. But I guess it's good for the U.S. government to be getting some of that revenue. So we will see what comes of that. All right, moving on. This from the Wall Street Journal. We got some hot news on Elon Musk. Musk takes fight with OpenAI to Apple over its App Store. So Elon Musk said Apple is behaving anti-competitively by promoting OpenAI's ChatGPT while suppressing his Grok AI chatbot in the App Store, renewing his criticism of the iPhone maker's partnership with OpenAI. Musk called Apple's App Store rankings an, quote, unequivocal antitrust violation in a post on the social media platform X on Monday night and threatened immediate legal action. Apple is behaving in a manner that makes it impossible for any AI company besides OpenAI to reach number one in the App Store, he said in a post. The App Store, which features lists of top and trending apps, is a key way for apps to access new customers. Apple doesn't say much about how and why it chooses particular apps to feature. Among the factors it considers are usability and positive ratings and reviews. An Apple spokeswoman said in a statement that the App Store is designed to be free of bias. We feature thousands of apps through charts, algorithmic recommendations, and curated lists selected by experts using objective criteria. Our goal is to offer safe discovery for users and valuable opportunities for developers, collaborating with many to increase app visibility in rapidly evolving categories, the spokeswoman said. So this is pretty juicy news here. The fact that you have Elon Musk saying, hey, look, we're going to sue Apple. I mean, that's going to make headlines any day of the week. And as far as how the stock has reacted, because I mean, yes, this focuses specifically on, Grok and that AI technology that Elon is building out. But if we talk about Tesla and how it's reacted to some of this news this week, I mean, it's been on a rip really for the past 5-6 days. It was sitting at 308 and climbed all the way up to 348. And as far as the Fibonacci levels I have on Tesla, it did manage to get back above that 50% Fibonacci level. Very interesting. And you have these moving averages here that are all kind of coiling right now. So, from a chart perspective on Tesla, it looks very bullish right now. And part of that has been some of the news regarding Elon Musk and potentially suing Apple. Because keep in mind, the idea has been floated around for a while now that Tesla invest in Grok, right? That really the two become intertwined in some way, shape, or form. We already know that we're putting Grok in Teslas, right? Elon's already said that. It's already something you can do. And so, the two are kind of already interlinked in a sense. And so the fact that, Elon potentially sues Apple and potentially wins, I would have ventured to say a lot of traders are kind of speculating on how bullish that could be for Grok as a platform, and therefore are bullish on Tesla. So very interesting. If we look at the options chain for Tesla on Wednesday, it was, pretty bullish, very bullish, I would argue, at least for Tesla. Put to call ratio 0.54, over 1 million calls bought. You had 600,000 puts. So, there is definitely more of a bullish sentiment right now on Tesla. Really, as far as some of those next levels that I would be paying attention to on this, if you are trading Tesla, 350 is going to be a psychological level. And as you can tell, on Wednesday, we just tapped it before rejecting it. So that would be the initial level. Beyond that, I would be looking at 371. That is the 38.2% Fibonacci retracement level on the daily chart. And as far as the RSI right now on Tesla, it's sitting at 60, so it's still got room to the upside. But nevertheless, a very interesting story and definitely something we'll be keeping tabs on. I mean, Elon's kind of been out of the news since his whole spat with President Trump, and so he's right back in it, folks. We'll see what happens with Apple. All right, let's move on to the economic calendar. So we did get CPI that came out on Tuesday, August 12th, and the markets hit new all-time highs based off of that data, which was essentially in line and really is just, giving us more of an indication that we are going to get that Fed rate cut in September. And if we take a look at CME Group, right now we're pricing in a 93% chance, folks, that we get a rate cut, a 25 basis point rate cut in September, which is great. And you can see now that we are even pricing in, if we take a look at October, another 25 basis point cut. Right now, the odds on that are 64%. And I've even seen, even as recent as, Wednesday afternoon, some people floating the idea that we might get a 50 basis point cut in September, which would be very interesting and very bullish for Opendoor in particular. Right now, there's a 5% chance we get that 50 basis point cut in September. But, these odds, as are constantly changing. So we'll be, keeping tabs on that. And as far as, what we got coming up the rest of the week, economic data-wise, Thursday, August 14th, you got initial jobless claims coming out, previous of 226,000, a forecast of 225,000. We're going to get PPI month over month for July. And then on Friday, August 15th, we're going to get core retail sales coming out. So we're going to get a great look at the consumer, and that will definitely be a volatile reading, whether bullish or bearish as it relates to the overall market, because we know the consumer is a big, big part of this economy. And so, I will definitely be paying attention to that. So if you are an active trader, these are definitely some notable data points to have on your radar. All right. And then lastly, let's take a quick look at the earnings calendar via Earnings Hub. So not a whole lot going on as far as Thursday or Friday. You're going to have JD.com and John Deere reporting before the open. And that's really about it. You got some other ones here after the close on Thursday. Friday, you don't really have anything happening. And then if we take a look at next week, we're going to get a good look at some more of, the consumer side of things. We're going to get Home Depot before the open on Tuesday, August 19th. We're going to get Target, Lowe's, TJ Maxx. Those all come out before the bell on Wednesday, August 20th. And then we got a big one on Thursday, August 21st before the bell, which is going to be Walmart coming out as well. So those are some of the earnings that will be coming up next week, and we'll be paying attention to those earnings as we get closer to next week. I'll, of course, be sharing that again for the Sunday market prep video in case you forget some of the earnings coming up next week if you are an earnings trader. So it's a jam-packed episode. That's what I got for you. Opendoor looks fantastic right now. I think the fact that you have two notable investors involved in the company, the fact that you have short interest being so high, the fact that you got a golden cross forming, retail interest is still high. I think last time I checked apewisdom.io, it was still in the top 20. The retail interest is not going away, which I think is very notable. One of the things I've been thinking about is the fact that when it comes to AMC, when it comes to GameStop back 2021, one of the big things about those companies and those movements was the retail interest stuck around. Despite the downside, despite, the flat days, the boring days, the retail interest stuck around. And what I've seen so far, about a month in, the retail interest on Opendoor is not only sticking around, but it's getting stronger. So we will definitely be paying attention to Opendoor in the coming days and weeks and see what happens. If you have a position in Opendoor, drop a comment. Let me know where you're at. If you got options, shares, whatever the case may be, let me know what your thoughts are on the U.S. government getting NVIDIA and AMD revenue. Do you think there's going to be any legal issues with that? As always, I'll be back on Sunday for the market prep video. Appreciate the support as always. If you want to support the channel, check the links in the description. You can also just simply subscribe, hit the like button, share with a buddy. Appreciate the support as always. And folks, remember, plan the trade and trade the plan. Have a good one.